It's another episode of the Bobcat Club podcast. I'm your host, Karl Schoening, and today we are joined by head coach of the Texas State men's basketball team, Danny Kaspar. Coach Kaspar, thanks for joining the show. And the first and most important question that a lot of people have asked me to ask you is, how do you groom your mustache and keep it so pristine?
Pristine. That's a new word for my mustache here. You know, I'm starting to use the word gray to describe my mustache here, but I don't know. I look at it and trim it a couple of 2-3 days. But you know, to be honest with you, Karl, this mustache is a product. I've had it since my senior year in college. The girl I was dating at the time brought it up, said, "I think you would look good with the mustache." So I grew it out, and and it did not, and it looked good according to her. You know, she said she liked it on me, and so I kept it. And then I met my wife, and there's been several times I said, "Man, I'm getting tired of maintaining this thing. I think I'm gonna shave it. Please, I don't want you to shave it." My wife is telling me that, and probably the biggest one now is my daughter. She just threatens me, "If don't you dare shave that mustache, Daddy." So, you know, when anyone says, really, I'm on a mandate from my wife and my daughter, don't shave my mustache.
Yeah, and it's kind of developed a bit of its own imaging with you, I guess, that people associate you with your mustache. I remember when you first came in here, members of the band would have a picture of your hair and your mustache and just that, and we knew who it was. So it's funny how it takes on a life of its own sometimes.
And at Stephen F. Austin, once a year, they had mustache night. And I mean, my wife still has the shirt where they have an actual picture of me on the front. And then they have what you said, you know, an outline of my face with just drawn with the mustache and the eyebrows and the mouth and nose. And I know just recently they started to pick up on that here, but that was a big promotion at Stephen F. Austin Mustache Night. And, you know, if you have a mustache or if you bring a fake one, you can get in free. And it went over pretty good at Stephen F. Austin. And like I tell Don Coryell, I said, "Man, if you can use me in any way, shape, or form to get more people in the stands, do it." You know.
Yeah, I think it's a popular feature that comes along with Danny Kaspar, as well as winning. You're one of the winningest head coaches in NCAA, active coaches. You're 25th in wins. You're approaching 600 by next basketball season. I think it's fair to assume you'll be up there. We could just move right into X's and O's. Where does the basketball career of Danny Kaspar start? What sparked the inspiration of you being a coach?
Well, when I say prayers to the good Lord, I thank Him for wonderful parents, a loving wife, a beautiful daughter. A lot of people that I've met through life have shaped my outlook, and one of them are my coaches. You know, from my Catholic school coach in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, who had a tremendous influence on my life, to my high school coach, Mike Kunstad, who, you know, was a very organized and disciplined gentleman who we knew loved basketball. And I think what I realized about him made me realize, hey, do your job, put a lot of enthusiasm into it. And if you, if you recruit the right people, they'll see that and they'll respect that and they'll jump in with you. They'll buy in. And because, you know, our high school coach, he and my Catholic school coach worked very hard and we won. We won a lot of games. We made a state Final Four my senior year in what would now be 6A. And we won the city championship my 7th and 8th grade year, and then we won the district title my senior year, and we finished in a tie my junior year, and my JV team won the district title. So, you know, winning, I like to think winning has been a big part of my life. I tell my assistants that I'm 65 years old, and how long will I coach? I said, that depends on how long we're winning. And, I mean, losing eats at me, and I like making money like anybody else, but the real motivation for me to continue coaching at my age is I still love it. I still love being around the guys. I think they keep me young. We have some good players, some good people. And particularly this last year's group was an excellent group of young men. And, they were good people that were fun to be around. And sure, if you come to practice, you hear me yelling at them because I don't think they're going hard enough or they didn't take the charge or this or that. But that's one of those things that if you ask me, if a player comes and says, Coach, you got on me about this, I say, I did. There are things you do on the spur of the moment to correct them and then you move on. And so we had some great kids, great young men this year. And that was a reason why, we finished in second. And I really thought we had a great chance to win the tournament the way we were playing at the end of the year.
You've gotten a chance to rub elbows with a lot of great coaches in your time. I particularly remember when you were in the NIT with Stephen F. Austin, Bill Walton mentioned how you were part of John Woodenkamp. When you were at the University of the Incarnate Word, you got to meet Greg Popovich and go to Spurs training camps. Could you talk about some of those bigger names that maybe influence how you coach today?
Well, again, they did influence me. I also had some great college bosses, start off with Billy Tubbs, start off with, continue with Dr. Gerald Stockton. And from there, Harry Miller at Stephen F. Austin, and then Gene Iba at Baylor. All these gentlemen won 600 games. I'm going to say at least 500 games or more at the collegiate ranks. And I thought all of them, like Billy Tubbs is up and down, get up and down coach. Dr. Stockton is someone that will push the ball, but he's got a lot of Hank Iba in him. Harry Miller is a great coach in terms of motion offense. And he gave me, because of his age, he gave me a chance to coach a lot starting at age 28 on the floor. And then Gene Iba is a great defensive coach and has a lot of Henry Iba motion offense principles into him too. But yes, when I got the job at Incarnate Word, the Spurs used to practice at our facility, our playing facility. They did not have their own practice arena like they do now. And so, every day they'd go either 10 to, I think they reserved it from 10 to 1. But some days they go 10 to 12, some days they go 11 to, depending on if they're, depending on if they're out of town or in town or what. And quite often we'd start at 1:30. So, we use the same training room and you're walking around the training room and there's Tim Duncan, David Robinson, Sean Elliott. And there was many times that the Spurs, back then you had the old TV VCR. Remember, where you plug in the VHS tape, I believe you call it. And I had one of those and that's what I watched games on. You didn't have these PCs back then. And so there was many a time where they come knock on my door and say, would they start practice? They wanted to watch film. And could they use that TV VCR? And Pop always told me, and his people always said, man, you ever want to come to a game, just let us know. They did tell me there was 2 games they may not be able to get me tickets. And that was when Jordan and the Bulls were in town and when Shaq was in town, because Shaq was a San Antonio product. But other than that, I could go to any Spurs game I want. But believe it or not, Carl, if I went to 2 Spurs games a year, that was it. They did not include playoff games in this. It was only one of the 41 regular season games at home. But other NBA teams would practice at Incarnate Word. Let's just say somebody's playing the Rockets on a Sunday, and then they don't play the Spurs till Tuesday. Well, they would come to San Antonio. They need a place to play or practice, I should say, on Monday. They'd come in on Monday night, or after men's and women's basketball, Incarnate Word teams would be finished. Here come the pro team, and quite often I'd call my wife, and I have a wonderful coach's wife. She's a wonderful wife, period, but certainly she's a great coach's wife, Debbie. And there'd be times I call Debbie and say, hey, I volunteered to keep the gym open for, the New York Knicks or the Boston Celtics or something, and they practice. And so I got to watch a lot of pro teams practice, but Pop would always say, hey, man, you want to watch, you're welcome to come in. And there was times that they'd be out there before the team got out there, and I'd go up there and talk with him for 10 minutes and I know he helped me on this job here at Texas State. I know he made a call, to Dr. Trout and Larry Tice, and on my behalf. And Bill Walton, I never met Bill till we played Stanford in the NIT, and I was in the locker room, and my SID says, "Hey, Bill Walton wants to talk to you before the game. Can you do it?" I said, "Sure." Bill Walton was leading UCLA to unbelievable years while I was in high school. So, golly, his sophomore and junior years, they were dominant, great teams. So I go out there and we talk, and I tell him about, I can tell him about games. He was just amazed that I knew so much about his teams and him. And he just took me under his wing. So much that when the SFA beat Duke this year, I was traveling from a recruiting situation. And I was watching the SFA game, Duke game in the Houston airport. And it went to halftime, and I had to board the plane. And I flew to Austin and got to my car, and I'm driving and talking to my wife, Debbie, and she's telling me what's happening. And she's all excited. SFA beat Duke because SFA employed me for 13 years. I want them to win every time unless they're playing us, and I'm all for the Lumberjacks. And that was great. And so my wife got off the phone, and then my college roommate called me, and we're talking, and all of a sudden I'm on Bluetooth, and all of a sudden it says Bill Walton's calling. And so I'm driving the car, and I told my college roommate, "Hey, Larry, this is Bill Walton calling." He goes, "Get out of here. That's not, you just don't want to talk to me." I said, "Larry, I'm telling you, Bill Walton's on the phone. I need to take the call." "Well, call me back. I want to hear what he has to say." So Bill Walton called me, and said, "Danny Kaspar." "Yes, sir, Bill, how you doing?" He says, "Well, listen, I just want to tell you that's a great win for SFA, and I know it started with you. You got that program going, and if you hadn't done what you did, they couldn't do what they're doing now." That kind of stuff. He was saying that kind of stuff. And just recently, about 4 weeks ago, I texted Bill and said, "I hope you and your family are safe and nobody's got the virus." And my wife and I were watching Blue Bloods on a Friday night, and all of a sudden this call from Bill Walton comes in, and he just texts me and says, "Man, I just want to call you. Thank you for thinking of me. Blah, 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 blah." We talked, Karl, we talked 45 minutes. He went over his times at UCLA. He told me things about Coach Wooden while he was playing. Then he talked about his time as a Portland Trailblazer when they won the title in 1977, about Dr. Jack Ramsey, the coach there, who's a phenomenal pro coach. He talked about his time with the Celtics, playing with Bird and McHale, and the Lakers-Celtics series. He talked about that. And, it was a 45-minute conversation. And I told him, I just couldn't believe this guy's spending 45 minutes with me on the phone and just talking like we were roommates. So, yeah, I treasure my friendship with Bill, even though we don't get to see each other. My wife and I are thinking about going on a vacation some point in time where we start in San Diego and make our way up to LA and check the beaches and go to the San Diego Zoo. And I think San Diego's a great city. I called Bill and said, "Bill, my wife and I are thinking about going to San Diego and then making our way up to LA. So you think we could meet at a restaurant for dinner?" He goes, "Well, Danny, we can certainly meet, but we're not going to a restaurant, and you're coming over to our house and we're going to cook you dinner." And then he said, "Before you get here, let me know when you're coming, because I want to talk to you and tell you what I think are the places you need to see in San Diego." So that's the kind of relationship I have with Bill. And, Pop, I can go to their practices when I want. And Pop told me, he said, "Hey, come on around more often." He said, "If you got an alumni you want to impress, bring them with you. And if you need to go to games, let me know." Well, that same year, this was not this past year, but the year before, we had a long break at Christmas. And I told Pop, I said, "I'd like to bring my team. We're playing Arkansas on the 22nd. We hadn't played. We played a game on the 15th, and we didn't play for a week. So I'm having the guys here with nobody else for a week. What am I going to do with these guys? So we did a couple of things together, a movie one night with them, and then I took them to a Spurs game, and Pop got tickets for everybody to the Spurs game. So that's the kind of relationships I have with those guys. And I'm sorry I talked so long. I probably bored all your fans and everything. So
No, that's awesome. And yeah, I've met people who've met Bill Walton, and they talk about how he's a stand-up guy. And I work for the Spurs, so knowing Pop, he's one of the great humans in coaching. And Yeah,
Got that
it's
right.
always great to hear about those kinds of things. Just kind of one last little topic that we can touch on before we let you go is how has the game of basketball, the sport, changed over your course of a coaching career, and how have you had to adjust to some of these new things, such as maybe big men stretching the floor out to the three-point line, or defensive philosophies with the increased volume of three-point shooting, and how you've had to change certain things with the physicality of the game, sort of going towards this new spectrums of like flagrant fouls and so on and so forth.
Well, the game has changed. It's become a more of a perimeter game. The three-point line changed that. The shot clock, first at 45, then at 35, and now at 30. So it's speeded up the game. In a way, it helps because being a defensive-oriented coach, I'm telling the guys, you don't have to defend now for 45 seconds. You only got to defend for 30. Actually, you got to defend for about 28 because they're going to shoot it by that time. So we can play better defense, and we don't have to play as long. And, so it's become a guards game or a perimeter game. Even you don't see you see more big men that are almost like forwards, not centers. I still like a big man who can score on the block. Call me old school, but, there's a lot of screen and roll stuff now versus, the 80s and the 90s. And that's come over from Europe. And but they're taking away the physicality of the game. They're, you can't put two hands on somebody when they drive. Sometimes you can't even put one. It's speed and quickness is very important under these new rules. But some things stay the same. You still got to put the ball in the hole. I tell my guys, my assistants, get me shooters, find me shooters, and guys who can defend, who can shoot and pass. I think there's a lot of dribbling going on in the game, and I don't like. I think there's a lot of people shooting too many threes. What are too many threes? 30 in a game. But shooting 18, 20 threes, if you're making 35% of them, that's maybe a little bit more, maybe 38. That's fine. But I just think that the rules have changed, and that has changed the game. The 3-point line, the shot clocks. They're talking about widening the lane now. I can't call timeout. We're the only major sport that a head coach cannot call timeout during the game. I don't understand that. I really don't. One of your players has to, unless it's in the last 2 minutes of the game. I think that's a very bad rule. Then they've had some good rules. A 5-second closely guarded, that was a subjective thing. Getting that one, a dribbler closely guarded for 5 seconds. It used to be that was a violation. You go the other way. It's no longer that way. So, used to be 25 years ago, a big man would get recruited by hundreds of schools, and guards were not. Well, it's kind of bounced out. Guards are getting recruited if you're a good player, a very good player, and you're a guard, you might even be getting recruited as big man. I watched a special on Jordan the other night on ESPN, and they took 2 big men before him in the draft. And of course, one of them being Akeem Olajuwon, that's understandable, especially going to Houston. But today, I think Michael Jordan would have been the number 1 choice. And Jordan helped change that. The Bulls, that's one of the programs that did not have a true center. They're one of the teams where they first went to away from that conventional low post center guy. So, the rules have changed the game. It's become faster. It's become less physical. You can't put your hands on people as much. You can't even try to cut them off and not let them cut. But I still believe defense wins championships. But you still have to have a pretty decent offense to go with that defense, though.
Stemming from that, I'm really curious about this because it's maybe where I would be as a coach in the 80s. Has there ever been a player on the opposing team in your basketball career as a player or coach that was just lighting you up, so your response was to use some of your fouls to maybe throw them out of a rhythm, something that you probably couldn't do today?
I never was the kind of coach that say, hey, just foul the hell out of him. I never was that kind of guy. We had a player like that this year. That UTSA has a guard that I forget his name right now, but he was a very good player. He's only like 5'10", 5'11", and he's a good player. But there are games when if he's not on, he beats UTSA. If he's on, he beats you. And he was on against us, and I want to say he had 30-something points against us. And in several times, my players, I couldn't say a word to them because I thought their defense was pretty good. He just hit clutch shots. And that's an example of how people are going to guards. UTSA's top two players are guards. Nigel's a small forward, for us. And, the year before, Trey Nottingham was our second leading scorer. I don't know. You just don't run into many big men leading their teams in scoring anymore. You just don't do that. So, but, Eric Terry and Alonzo Sule, we're very proud of them. They're we're going to miss Eric, and I think Alonzo has a potential to be an all-conference player here if he'll do some individual work on his own to develop himself and get stronger.
Yeah, well, I think you've done a really good job adjusting over the years between still kind of keeping everything working from the inside out successful, because at the end of the day, especially in the college game, I feel like scoring mostly comes from 15 feet in, and then you can open up your outside game. But what do I know? I'm just a broadcaster, but we
go inside out, right, Karl? And just a little bit about our program. I just, if I can brag a little bit, I my first 3 years, it really, that was a grind. That really wore on me. 8-22 my first year, 14-17 my second year, and I thought that was a good step up. My second year, we won a game in the tournament. In my third year, we were disappointed. We went 15-16. I really thought we could flip that around. We had some attitude issues that year with a couple of players, and then we turned it around. And in the last 4 years, there's 23 Division I schools in Texas that play basketball. Over the last 4 years, we're the sixth most successful. University of Houston has 104 wins. Texas Tech has 96. Baylor has 92. SFA has 88. TCU has 84, and we have 82. But here's the difference between us and them programs. Houston, Baylor, and I called their scheduling people to get this information. Houston, Baylor, and TCU play 6 or 7 guarantee games a year. And for those people who don't understand, that's where they buy a team like they did us this year to come in and play. And they pay you really good money, and they expect to win that game. And Baylor, we played Baylor for money this year. We played Houston for money. Baylor beat us by 9. They were number 2 in the country. Houston beat us by 8. We were down 5 to Baylor with 3 minutes to go. We were down 3 to Houston with 2 minutes to go. But those guarantee games, okay, so again, I say Houston, TCU, and Baylor play 6 or 7 guarantees a year. Texas Tech plays 8 or 9. Stephen F. Austin plays 4 non-D1s a year. We play 2. So there's a little bit skewed, that information, because we don't have all these guarantee games, and they do. And yet we're up there, close to them. So I want to do better. I want to get in the NCAA. I want to win a Sun Belt regular season title. We have improvements to make. But, after 14 years without a winning record, I'm very proud of what these guys have done. And let me go back, not this year, last year, but the year before, we were 14-7 before Marlon Davis tore his ACL. And he's my starting point guard, and that's like losing your starting quarterback in football. And we went 1-10 the rest of the season, losing a bunch of games by 4 points or less. I felt like if Marlon would have had safety, we'd be up there around 90-something wins. I'm going to say around 88 to 90 wins. We would probably be up there somewhere around, 4th in the state. And with only 2 guarantee games a year. So I like to think we've made great strides. We're on an upward trajectory. We're doing it with good people. I like the young men on our team. They're good people, and our APR was 1,000 last year. We're hoping it's going to be that again this year. And we haven't had any behavioral problems that bring bad publicity to the university. And my kids are graduating. So, other than a conference title and an NCAA tournament appearance, all the other boxes have been somewhat checked.
Well, we think you're doing a phenomenal job as the head coach of our men's basketball program here. Thank you for taking the time today. Before we let you go, is there anything you'd like to say to the Bobcat fans and viewers out there?
I would. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I want to say thank you all of you who came to the games. That last game against Appalachian State, what an atmosphere that you created. It was tremendous. I was so proud of all of our fans, our students, our alumni. The game against UTA and App State were outstanding. We had some other nice games against Little Rock, Arkansas State. We were one game away from winning the title. We lost Nigel for one game, so he could fly home to be with his wife, his fiance while she had his baby. And probably the worst thing was they started off our conference play 4 on the road, and we went 1-3. And from then we went, and then we had to come home. We played on Saturday and came home on a Monday to play a home game, and that didn't give us very much rest and preparations. We started off conference play 1-4, and we ended up 13-7. So we went 12-3 the last 15 games. One of those games Nigel did not play in, and we lost by 3 without him there. And so we lost to UTA at home by 3, missed a 3 at the buzzer, and I forget what the other game we lost. But it was a good year. It was a very good year, and the fans, you do so much to help the atmosphere. You make it exciting. And I'm just thankful for all those who come to the games, those people who joined the Bobcat Tipping Club. I want to thank my wife. She has a birthday party for every player, coach, manager, and trainer after one of their birthdays after practice. And if their birthdays are on a Sunday or on a game day, we do it the next day. That comes out to about 24 birthday parties she puts on per year. So I want to take this opportunity to thank her. So I guess that's it. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity.
Hey, we thank you so much for coming on. Stay healthy, and we can't wait to see you back on the sidelines coaching.
Well, I can't too. Let's all try to do our part to get this COVID-19 under control.
All right. Thanks for your time, and we'll see you next time, Coach.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.